Hi, how you doing? Our garlic harvests usually feel like a high five from Mother Nature. But we dug the garlic a couple of days ago, and as I suspected, the harvest is disappointing, and it's far from the haul that I was hoping for. Today, I thought I'd walk you through what went wrong, how I'm going to salvage what we did get, and most importantly, how I'm going to avoid this mess for next year. I will also go through how I'm going to go about drying and curing the garlic for long-term storage. If you're new here, my name is Sharon, and I garden on a large yard in a small town in east central Saskatchewan, Zone 3. Welcome to my Sask Garden. I don't grow a lot of garlic, and as a matter of fact, last fall when I planted, I cut the amount that I plant normally. I cut that down to about half. And so I think that last year that turned into about 45 cloves that I planted. There's a video from last fall when I planted that garlic if you want to go back and take a look. So the good news is it looks like I have about a dozen heads that should be suitable for drying and using through the winter. I don't know if the storage life will be as good as I've had in the past, and generally for me that's close to a year that my garlic will normally store. But I will get into how I dry and cure the garlic just a little bit later in the video. On to the disappointment, and that is that clearly 3/4 of my crop have failed. And I think it's onion maggot damage. I thought that this was the problem a couple or so weeks ago when I first really noticed that the problem that I had wasn't just normal drying. And I noticed that there was significant damage. And so I went back and I Googled all the possible problems that it could be. And I still think that onion maggots are the culprit. I really started noticing the problem shortly after I cut off the scapes about a month ago now. And I went back, I just went back and watched the garlic scape video, the garlic scape relish video that I did in early July, which shows the crop at that time. And there was no sign of problems at that time that I could see by rewatching that video. And I don't recall any problems at that time either. So just to be clear, this problem that I have with the garlic harvest had nothing to do with cutting the scapes. I don't want it to sound like I cut the scapes and then there was a problem. I'm really just mentioning that to emphasize how quickly the problem came up within the last month. Initially, I thought the plant yellowing was really just them starting to die back and dry as they normally would at this time of year. They normally dry through July, and then you harvest. Generally for me, I harvest about the first week, the end of July, first week of August, and so I really did think it was just normal drying at the time. But then it got quickly worse. The yellowing leaves, they were yellowing instead of drying. And so as the problem progressed, then I pulled up 3 bulbs about a week or 10 days ago, just to inspect them closer. And I discovered this, which I'll just put up a photo. And I talked about that in the Veg Garden July update video, which is maybe 2 or 3 videos ago. Again, if you want to see that, you just go back and take a look for it. So I was hesitant to dig up all the garlic right at that point. And I thought maybe it was better to leave the garlic even as sacrificial plants so that the larvae wouldn't go and attack the onion that are growing in the same bed. And so far, so good with the onion. And the necks are starting to fall. Here's just a photo of what it looks like today. The necks are starting to fall over, indicating that they are also going to start maturing very quickly. I'll be watching them very closely and probably pulling an onion from time to time just looking for signs that the maggots have moved in. And if they have, then I will harvest that onion quickly instead of risking it being damaged like the garlic has been. And so this is what AI tells me about onion maggots. And I'm just going to put this on the screen. So if you want to take screenshots, you can. And that is that onion maggot damage on garlic appears as wilting, yellowing, and drooping leaves, often accompanied by rotting bulbs and tunnels, which are caused by the maggots. The maggots, which are the larvae of a fly, feed on the roots and bulbs, weakening the plant and creating entry points for other diseases. The infested plants will show signs of wilting, yellowing, and drooping leaves, which mine definitely did show that. The maggots tunnel into the bulbs, causing them to rot and become soft. My damaged bulbs don't appear to be soft at this point. I don't know if trying to dry them and cure them, if they would just continue to sort of rot away or not, I'm not sure. But mine don't appear to be soft at this point. It's actually quite sad because they there's some really nice, good-sized bulbs in there, but they're garbage. Feeding damage by the maggots creates holes and tunnels in the bulbs, making them misshapen and susceptible to secondary infections. The part of the bulbs that I have that look most damaged are right at the roots. The rest of the bulb doesn't really appear to be misshapen in any way. The onion maggot comes from a fly, and it's the larva of a small gray fly. The adult is a small gray fly. And then the female fly lays the eggs near the base of the host plants, including garlic. The larvae hatch and tunnel into the roots and the bulbs, and they feed on the plant tissue. And the mature maggots pupate into the soil, and apparently there can be multiple generations of onion maggots during a growing season. The maggots or pupae can overwinter in the soil or in the infested bulbs. And I sort of, if that fly didn't lay its eggs in the spring, when the garlic was up and before the onion was planted, then I think it was in the bulbs that I planted last fall without knowing. I mean, the bulbs look great, but sometimes I think perhaps you just can't see what might be there. Now, the important part is how can this be prevented in the future? And the first thing would be crop rotation, which I already do. I don't plant garlic in the same spot for a 3-year period. Maybe I'm going to have to push that to 4. I think I read somewhere that 4 years is a good period of time. I am also going to buy fresh cloves for planting this fall. I've been planting my own harvested garlic for many years, and that's not generally a problem. But for me this year, trying to plant from those good bulbs that I showed you, the dozen good bulbs that I have, may mean overwintering these nasty things on these bulbs. I don't know if they're on there. I have no idea. So I'm going to order the new ones. I've already got my order in, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to garbage these bad bulbs, and I'm not going to compost them or at all. I'm going to put them in the garbage. Finally, the last measure I can take to try and protect my crop next year, or one that you can take if you're concerned about it, is that I can net my garlic early in the year next year to prevent any flies from laying their eggs. And then for drying the garlic, normally I'd lay the garlic on this cart and let it enjoy the shade and prairie breeze all day. And then I'd wheel it into the greenhouse at night or on rainy days. But this year, my greenhouse is a pepper jungle with way too much humidity inside the greenhouse. So plan B is, and because I don't really have too many, I'm going to try tying these into bundles. I'm going to use bundles of 4, I think. So I'm just going to tie them, and then I'm going to tie them from the top there, like that, just so that they still hang fairly loosely. And then I'm probably going to tie them or hang them out back. I think in the smoker gazebo, we have a small gazebo over the smoker and the barbecue, where it's always shady, but where they can still benefit from the breeze. I may move them somewhere drier if heavy rain threatens, but the chances of that happening are pretty slim going into August. What you're looking for when you're drying garlic is shade and breeze, or well ventilated. Too cold and damp with no breeze is not great drying and curing conditions. We had that one year where I had to keep them in the greenhouse quite a bit, and they started to get a little moldy because it just wasn't dry enough. And I landed up bringing them into the house earlier than I thought I would, just because the house was, lower humidity. So low relative humidity is the best. August is generally a great month for drying on the prairies. It usually works out pretty good with it generally being warm. Breezy here is always breezy, and well, this. Just know that if you put fresh dug garlic in a shed or garage for a week or more, you're going to get a very strong garlic smell inside, and that is also going to permeate whatever is stored in there, like your vehicle. And true story, I bought a car a long time ago from a lady who dried her garlic and onion in the garage. Maybe even stored it in there, I'm not sure. But that car had a lingering and garlic and onion smell for quite some time. It did eventually go away. I think Andy also deep cleaned all the upholstery and carpets when he detailed it. So be warned, your car may smell like Baba's kitchen for a while if you dry your garlic or your onion in the garage. And you may wonder how long it takes how long you should dry garlic. And I will dry my good bulbs until all the leaves are dry and crispy, which will probably be a couple or maybe 3 weeks. Then I'll trim off all the leaves, and at that point I'll trim the roots. I don't trim the roots prior to that, but I'll trim the leaves and the roots, but I won't trim the stalk at all. That stalk is actually the hard neck that goes down into the center of the bulb. And that stalk needs to be dry all the way down into the bulb. You trim the stalk a bit, and if you smell garlic, it's not dry enough. If you don't smell garlic, trim it down a couple inches lower until, you smell garlic, and then stop. And then a week or so later, you can trim a little bit more of the stalk until you no longer smell garlic. When you no longer smell garlic, that's when you can leave like maybe a 3 or 4 inch bit at the top. You can clean off all your bulbs and you can put them into long-term storage at that point. And that's when I consider that garlic to be cured as well. Garlic is generally such an easy plant to grow. And this was my first hiccup in the many years I've been growing it. It won't deter me from growing it again. And like I said, I've already got my new garlic on order, and I've already got it planned where the new bed is going to be as well. Hey, thanks very much for watching today, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And while you're at it, maybe hit that share button down there too. Thanks again. See you.